Igor, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Third time, huh?
Yeah.
Yes, good
Time
to
flies.
good to talk to you again. Yeah. This time I prepared, so if you're watching at the videos, you can see I have Igor's book.
Wonderful.
Two of his book. I have a few more.
Yeah.
No, so I wanted to talk a little bit about the current situation and how to deal with this. And since you are one of the guys that I really trust in this area, I was thinking I'll reach out to Igor. But first, we have listeners all over the world. So, and a lot of people are curious about Sweden and the situation in Sweden. Some people say that Sweden is doing some kind of experiment, but for me, it looks like the rest of the world is doing an experiment. How is the situation now in Sweden when it comes to the coronavirus and the lockdown?
Well, it's I'm trying to stay informed, and I mean, it's obvious. It's very important to know to understand what's happening in the country, in your own country.
Yeah.
And Sweden has been in focus internationally because of it has, according to other to foreign journalists, it has had a different approach to fighting pandemic. But according to, if I have understood it well, according to Swedish virologist experts, not all of them, but most, as I understand, especially Anders Tegnell and his predecessor, the guy who was responsible for virologist before Anders, they both agree that this seems to be a very two things, that this seems to be a very reasonable way, and the second thing is that it's actually not so different from other countries. And what I mean by that is that people in Sweden are required to practice social distancing, to be extra cautious with the hygiene. Also, it's forbidden to gather in groups that are larger than 50 persons. And we are also advised to stay at home as much as possible. Also to avoid any journeys or travels that are possible to be avoided. And also to not to meet our elder relatives, and because they are in particularly risk. So these things are more or less the same. If I understand it correctly, the difference is that they didn't close the schools, and they didn't close the borders, and they didn't close the borders because the infection or disease was already in the country. So they made a decision that it's not so, it's meaningless at that point in time. And that they allowed kids to still go to school. If I understand correctly, the main reason is that healthcare personnel would be able, and also other people who are vital for the society, can go to work. Because if they have to stay at home with their kids, then they cannot help the sick and those in need. So if I understand it correctly, those are like the differences.
Yeah, and from what I see is that, Swedish people tend to listen to the government. So even though they don't put it as a law or a rule, it's an advice, but most people tend to follow what the government is saying, is that correct?
Yeah, and also I read yesterday some restaurants have been warned in the central part of Stockholm. You know about it maybe already.
Yeah, and the south side of Stockholm, I heard they had.
Yeah. And they have been warned once or twice that they were not following the recommendations and advices, and because they didn't follow it still, 5 of those restaurants have been closed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there are consequences if you don't.
Yeah, of course. And personally, and of course I am biased, but personally I appreciate when you give people chance and respect their free will. But also if they are putting other people in danger, then of course there is a next step. But you begin always with giving people chance to to treat them as adults who are clever and
yeah.
able to make good decisions.
So you're in Malmö, which is the south part of Sweden, and there's the bridge to Denmark.
Yeah.
So is the bridge open? Can the Danish people travel across, or how does it work?
I'm not sure. I believe that in Denmark has closed its borders. I believe so. I don't think Sweden has closed, but I think they are not allowed to travel from Denmark or in Denmark.
Okay. Yeah.
But please, I'm not 100% in this.
Yeah, no problem.
Because
Yeah,
I've been practicing social distancing so much. I've been at home for like 5 or 6 weeks now.
So you don't know.
So I'm not movable as I used to be before the corona.
Yeah. Now in Dubai, we've been by law we were supposed to stay at home, and we were not allowed to go out for 3-4 weeks now. They eased these a little bit on Friday, so people could go out and exercise. But before we were not even allowed to go to do exercise. And then my personal opinion, based on what I read, is that I think Sweden is doing the right thing, because but it comes maybe because I'm biased, because I'm a small business owner, and one of the business I'm involved in is related to events and hotels, and I see a lot of my friends that have small business, and a lot of my friends in the hospitality and hotels and tourists are suffering the financial consequences of this. So this is my personal opinion, but I think Sweden is doing the right thing because we need to get the economy needs to keep going, otherwise people will suffer even more. And social distancing is, I think, for an introvert like you, Igor, maybe it's easy.
No problem at all.
It's the same for my wife. My wife is so happy working from home.
I mean, really, it's no real.
So I have a personal conspiracy theory, and that is that the introverts caused the coronavirus, so they could.
Oh my God! I hope not. I hope.
I'm kidding.
You shouldn't. Yeah. But I can tell you that one thing. I have had this type of talk and discussion a couple of times, of course, because it's time. It's in time now. It's happening. And one thing that actually helps me to feel relatively calm and safe in not only in my own personal case, but on the level of nation in Sweden, is that people are not only people like you and me who are like amateur virologists. I'm a layman. I can just follow what I read. But people who are really who are scientists and who have been doing this stuff for many decades, they are discussing openly with each other. It's not like everybody thinks the same. There are others who have different opinions, and they question decisions, and then the scientists who made decisions, they give answers to this. So, and this makes me calmer, because it's not like one track mind nationally, but there is a room for discussion, and they are also monitoring the numbers. So, and my subjective impression is that they are ready to adapt the course or to change the course of action if they see that they need to. So it's not like you make one decision and then you just do it, no matter what counter information you get, because that would be scary. And then, of course, we have this part of elder people really getting sick. We have like 2 big groups who has been overrepresented in fatalities, and the one is older people in older care facilities, and the second group is people with I believe most Somalian background in areas where they are living similar to Italy, if I understand correctly, where they live many generations under the same roof. And also many people in that area have the work that they cannot do from home, but they have to take public traffic to go to work and then stay, so they are more exposed.
Yeah, no, I think Sweden is a big country with a small population relative to its size. So if you go out on the countryside, there's so much space. I mean, I have friends that are mental trainers in the north, and they go out every day, but there's no people around. So, I mean,
exactly.
If you're in northern Italy or if you're in China, of course, maybe it's more close.
Yeah, crowdy.
Yeah, but anyway, so one of the books you wrote here is Learning How to Lose, and can you share a little bit about what is this concept? If you're an elite athlete, why do you need to learn how to lose?
Well, both if you're an elite athlete, but also if you are just a human being, the things happen in life, not unfortunately not always the way we want them to happen and develop. And this means that, like they say, sometimes you win, sometimes you don't, even if you do your best. So you give a sports example. So in sports, sometimes you can do your best and still lose. And sometimes you maybe do not so well, but you still win because you were lucky or your opponent wasn't so difficult. So it's the similar in life. I mean, some people can do anything, everything they can to stay healthy and to be in good shape and to eat healthy and exercise and everything, and it can still happen something that makes their health deteriorate. It can be something mechanical, like a car accident or another type of injury, but it can also be that people get sick even though they've been taking care of their health. And then you have examples of rock stars and other people has been using everything and misusing everything they could, and they are still going strong. So my point is that there are just some parts of life that we can control, but oftentimes it happens in life, in relations, and in health and in work, things that are outside of our control. And then it's important to learn how to handle that.
Yeah, so now the corona crisis is global, and I think more than 3 billion people are in lockdown, and there's a lot of fear and there's a lot of worry. And how would you work with someone? Let's say someone was sitting in front of you. How would you work with that person to help them go through the fear and these challenging times that we're having right now?
Yeah, well, it's important to ask a question. When in time I meet this person, if this would be somebody who I have been worked before with, then hopefully this person, I'm expecting that this person has already developed a certain attitude and tools in their everyday life before the crisis that they can now rely on when the crisis. It's like learning how to swim before you are drowning, because it's too late to learn how to swim while you are drowning. So then you just need somebody to pick you, to hold you, or to save you, or something to hold on, which is keeping you over the surface. But so one important principle, that's why I wrote this book for, 5 years ago, Learning How to Lose, is that these situations happen in both on individual and on society level, and now on the global level. But we had actually similarity 2008. It was just on the economical global level. Now it's on global health level. And I'm not the one who came up with this. It's just my life experience. But other people, like the guy who wrote Black Swan, has been writing about this stuff for a long time. And the idea is that you don't wait for the problem to develop your ability to handle the problem. I will give you an example. I call this training for 10. And if you have a scale 1 to 10, where the 1 is like vacation, everything is going smoothly, and 10 is like worst case scenario. My clients and myself, I always, the idea is that when everything is working relatively well, you practice to handle worst case scenario. So when the worst case scenario happens, you have developed the resources and the competencies to handle it, because it doesn't meet you unprepared. My karate teacher, Sensei Taiji Kaze, he is the one who he survived Second World War as a variation of kamikaze pilot, but he wasn't supposed to drive to fly an airplane, but it was a variation of kamikaze, but it was a small submarine instead. And the day when it was his turn to crash it, the Japan capitulated.
Wow.
So he survived, but he kept this mental attitude, this mindset, that which is actually the old samurai mindset, like many 100 years old mindset, that to be able to feel calm in life, you have to be ready to face death anytime. And many years ago on a seminar, he died 2004, so this was like in the beginning of the 90s. It was a karate seminar, and we were like a couple of hundred participants, and there was a small period where people could ask questions, and somebody asked him, well, if I practice with a partner, or the partner I practice with is not really controlling his punches and kicks, but is more or less uncontrolled and not caring how hard they attack you, so even if they maybe injure you, how should you respond? How should you treat that kind of behavior? And Kaze Sensei, he answered, well, you should always have the attitude that your partner is not controlling his punches and kicks. Not only that, he said you should actually mentally have the attitude, the mindset that he's having knife or machete or axe or something else. Even though his hands are empty, you should see and feel like he's armed, and practice according to that. So in a case when person is armed, it's everyday business for you.
So mental toughness should be practiced not only when you're in the middle of the crisis, before, to prepare, to always be ready for these kind of things.
Exactly. You cannot practice in the middle of the crisis, because crisis is eating up all the attention. So in the middle of the crisis, you just rely on what you have.
This thing they say that you don't build the roof when it's raining, you build the roof before, in case of the rain.
Exactly.
Think,
and this is very,
The Stoic philosophers also have something like this now, that
of course,
to live like a poor man once a year or something like this, to see how it is to really be poor, and then come back to what you have and really appreciate what you have. So
yes, exactly. And I mean, it's also my way of explaining this. Actually, I have a personal expression for this, and I believe this is first time I'm telling it to anybody else.
Oh, really?
I call this I call this fuck off factor.
Okay.
Fuck off factor, and what it stands for is, and this is my personal understanding of this both Stoic and samurai philosophy. And why I say personal, because when I was young, I noticed there is something in me personally where I always feel, when I get a problem, or if I feel scared or sad or whatever, there is something inside me that screams fuck off to that situation. And I don't know what it is, but it doesn't matter. When I was younger, it made me a lot of problems. It created me a lot of problems, because I was colliding with people and situations where I felt pressured or cornered, or when I felt somebody tried to make me do things against my will. So it feels like every cell in my body was screaming fuck off to that. It don't matter the consequences, more or less. But after a while, when I started to mature a little bit, I noticed that the big problem of having this fuck off attitude to everybody is actually that it put me in conflict. But after a while, I noticed that what I really want to say fuck off to is my own fears and my own anger and my own negativity. So in other words, I don't want to be controlled by my own thoughts and feelings that make me feel threatened or angry or as a victim. So, and this is when mental training and meditation really took off for me, because other people probably, I don't know, but other people maybe practice because they want to be more harmonious and better persons. I just want to say fuck off to anything and everything that is putting pressure on me. And after I noticed that actually what is real source of unhappiness and fear inside me is actually inside me. It's my own emotional reactions to situations. Then everyday training, I since then I never lacked motivation for training, because no matter how hard I train, there is still stuff I need to say fuck off to inside me.
Yeah. So how do you train in these days? I know you spend a lot of time meditating. How is a day in Igor's life? Like, how much training do you do?
Yeah, I believe we talked about this. I begin every day with a breathing meditation practice, and I call this ABT: attention, breathing, and tension control. And these three are one. And what I focus on breathing, but actually I focus in a particular way where when I exhale, I extend my mind, my attention. When I say my mind, I mean my attention. I imagine like from the beginning of the exhale, I start on 1 point, the 1 point anchor in the lower belly. And then I imagine as I exhale that this is expanding and it becomes larger. And after a while, I expand my mind so it covers the whole room, and then I continue, so the whole town and a city and the continent and the universe. And then when it's time to inhale, I imagine this gathering and going back, so it becomes smaller, and coming back to 1 point in my lower belly. And of course, to be able to do this, you have to relax, which helps you to stay focused on this idea. And what this practice gives is, so you learn how to focus on the space around your thoughts and feelings. So you cannot help, I don't know, anybody I know, with me included, can help these scary thoughts and feelings to appear inside. But what I can learn is to control my attention. So my attention, as soon as it starts noticing the space around these feelings, then I don't need to identify with this feeling of fear, for example, or anger, but I can notice the space around, which means this is not the only reality. So this is like the purpose behind this exercise. And I do that for a couple of hours, and then I practice also Wim Hof every day. And this is a really practical good thing, because every time I go in a cold shower or a cold bath, which I do at least 5-6 times a week, 5-6 days a week, or often a couple of times a day, there is something inside me that is trying to make me, you do really need to, you already did it once, so okay, you can do it later. Today I don't feel so well, I feel a little bit tired. No, not you're not cold now, come on, you did it yesterday. And I need to focus on the space around these things and still do what I decided to do and relax with the cold instead of fighting, which is the same as saying fuck off to
Yeah.
The part of me that is weak.
It's a little bit fight in your brain. I have the same thing now. I'm doing the simple and sinister program with Pavel, the kettlebell program, where you do daily kettlebells. And it's the same thing. I have a daily fight in my mind. Should I do it or should I not? And this morning I had a fight for like 10 minutes walking around in my apartment, but I ended up doing it. So I conquered
Nice.
my inner bitch.
If I can, I understand. If I can just say one thing here, it's easy to, and I know you understand it, but I just, for the listeners, I think we need to be precise. It sounds like a fight because I call it fuck off factor, but actually it's not so much conflict, it's more transcendence. Because when I fight against the weakness, then I focus on the weakness, then the weakness makes me upset. And when I become upset, the weakness starts owning me, owning my perception, owning my attention. But when I start noticing the space, mental space and physical space around this weakness, then I'm going beyond it. You could call it transcending. And then you can start relaxing with this weakness. So the freedom from thought is not gained by fighting the bad thoughts or feelings. It's gained by noticing the space around them and relaxing with them. So they still exist, and I'm guessing they will continue to exist the rest of my life, because this is the part of who I am, my thoughts and feelings. But what changes is I'm free from them, not because I have killed them, but because I just told them fuck off and focus on other stuff. So it's not so much conflict, it's more controlling your attention and leaving them by, just letting them exist.
Okay, I noticed you have an Aikido book in the back, so it sounds a little bit like Aikido. Like you don't fight the force, you just flow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's true. Yeah. It's true. It's the Aiki way means like you extend your mind. As you in Japanese they speak of shoga and daiga, and shoga is personal mind or ego in Western term description. But the daiga is like the large mind, the universal mind. And they mean that they have this idea, I explained it in hypnothinking, that every personal mind is actually part of the universal mind. Every small consciousness is the smaller portion of the universal consciousness. Like if you have, for me, I understood it. If you have like a castle, but not only with large windows, but many different windows, different sizes and shapes, and some similar, some very different, like millions of these or even more. That's how large this castle is, and you have the lights inside. So when you look from the outside, you see all these different windows. If it's night, you notice the shapes of these windows because it's night outside and the light is turned on the inside. And all these windows are separate and different and unique, but at the same time, the light that we can see on the outside is the same. So every window has its own light, but every window is sharing the similar light. This is so each window's personal light would be shoga, your own personal mind. But in the background, they all share the same source, which would be daiga in Japanese. This is how I explained it for myself.
Okay, excellent. So we talked about dealing with this crisis, and the best way to prepare is to be prepared always for the worst case scenarios. So I like to say that the best time to start training mental training or meditation is 10 years ago, and the second best is today if you haven't done it. So this
I agree.
Like and some kind of meditation practice or a mental training practice to practice these kind of things, to take care of your emotions and these kind of practices. You talk about in Swedish fast, but I guess in English it's fat maybe. Like,
ABT.
So it's ABT in English. Okay.
Yeah. Attention, breathing, and tension control.
Yeah. So for those that haven't done the practice before, the ones that haven't done years of meditation, any like quick techniques to maybe like tension techniques or things that?
Yeah.
Do you have anything like this?
Yeah. Well, I can recommend. I can recommend two very well proven and research techniques. And the first one, like you mentioned, it is progressive muscle relaxation. It's very simple. You tense and relax in different muscle groups in your body, but what you do, it's not only tense and relax. You actually focus on how it feels when you tense, and then the contrast, how it feels when you relax. And the good thing about it, this is created by Edmund Jacobson, the physician from Chicago, actually 100 years ago. And what Dr. Edmund Jacobson noticed is that, and he's actually the first person in the world that scientifically approached the relaxation and the physiological, the body's physiological response on stress. And one interesting, and also the effects of the relaxation. Another person who worked and lived at this same period of time was Walter Bradford Cannon. And in 1915, he coined this expression, fight or flight response, which happens when we are scared or angry, when the pulse goes up and blood pressure goes up and tension in the body goes up. And at the same time, Jacobson, in the same period of time, Jacobson experimented with relaxation. And sometimes he told people to relax, but they couldn't. But then he noticed if he asked them to tense first and then not to tense, just to let go of tension, then they relaxed automatically. And the idea behind this is that it doesn't only affect you physically, but the interesting part is it affects you mentally. Mm-hmm. Because, and this is very nice explanation, because he said, because of muscles and nerves are very tightly unified in the body. If you try to calm your nerves, you usually end up by tensing yourself when you try to calm down, which makes you more upset. But if you consciously relax your muscles, then your nerves will calm down. So this is the very simple and very powerful idea behind the progressive muscle relaxation. Mm-hmm. And the listeners are free to Google it. But it's like when you relax your physical body, your mind starts calming down.
Yeah. So in mental training, the Swedish version of mental training with Unistol, the first part is muscular relaxation. And also if you buy Igor's book, Strong on the Inside, you can download the app next to it. It's not, I think you were
I don't think it's in English yet. I don't think,
no,
I'm working to translate it in English.
But we have a lot of listeners in Sweden as well. I think maybe 30-40% of the listeners are in Sweden. So for the, Igor hasn't translated the book yet, but for the Swedish listeners, they can buy the book, and then there's the app, and in the first 2 or 3 includes muscular relaxation, no?
Yeah, different ways of approach. Yeah. And the other tool is also well known and well researched. It's a little bit younger. It comes from the 1960s, and it's developed by Dr. Herbert Benson, and it's called relaxation response. And it's in a way completing the muscular relaxation. So progressive muscle relaxation is about calming the mind through relaxing the body. Relaxation response is developed by Dr. Herbert Benson, cardiologist from Harvard. And it's actually relaxing the body through calming the mind. So it's the other way around. Mm-hmm. And what it's about is and you can also Google a relaxation response. He wrote a book for 50 years ago, half a century ago, and it's still very popular and interesting. And the Benson is still alive also, even though he has been around for a while. But if I understand correctly, he's still going strong. But relaxation response is also something you can start practicing immediately and start noticing effect within 10 minutes. And what it's doing is you sit down in a position where you feel relaxed and symmetric in your body. And you just choose the word to focus on. You can choose any word you want to, something preferably that you connect with feelings of calmness, relaxation. It gives you a nice feeling. But if you're having trouble to come up, you can just pick a word, one or any number. And then you focus on, every time you exhale, you repeat this focus word for yourself. In India, it's known as mantra, but we call it focus word. And when your mind, not if, when your attention starts focusing on something else, usually something that worries you or scares you or makes you sad, something that creates strong feelings. Also, if you feel bored, then whatever feels more interesting in the moment. So you can count on that your attention will start, you will start getting distracted. As soon as you notice that your attention has moved from the object of focus, this word that you repeat for yourself every time you exhale, you should just say, oh well, and passively acknowledge the fact that your attention has moved, and just go back, next exhale, go back to the word. And maybe you need to do this like a couple of 100 times during the 5 minutes of period of meditation. And this is how it should be. You are strengthening being able to transcend, to move your attention from the problem, so your attention doesn't get kidnapped, but you choose what to focus at.
Yeah. So you start with 10 minutes or 5 minutes, or how first time?
Yeah, if you're a beginner, start with 3. Because success breeds success. It's better to start smaller and feel good that you have finished the period of 3 minutes. Then after a while, 5 minutes will feel like 3. And after a while, 10 minutes will feel like 5. So
yeah, excellent. No, that's perfect. That's something that is like a gift to the listeners, that something they can implement into their daily lives immediately to work with this stressful times for a lot of people because of the current situation. Anything else about this Corona and the crisis? Or?
Well, one thing maybe is that it is horrible that so many people are dying in this in this disease. And I read today it has already passed the level of the flu in Sweden, that the number of people who are deceased now has passed the number that ever died in any other kind of flu or virus disease. But what for me is the most important thing is to maybe understand that we are always very vulnerable. So now the corona is making us conscious of our vulnerability, but actually when this passes, which it will, it will come something else, and then something else. We are always vulnerable. So what's important for me to understand is not just focus on coming through this period of corona pandemic, but to understand that whole life is a challenge in that way, that we have to struggle with our vulnerability, physically, emotionally, mentally. And as soon as we can really wrap our mind around this fact and really accept it, then it's not so much about surviving corona, it's about living as good life as possible despite the fact that we are very vulnerable. And also, as the second part of this is, how can I help people around me who are struggling with vulnerability? Because as soon as you focus, as soon as you can extend your mind from only your own fear, your own feelings, and start thinking and focusing on how you can help other people to handle their fears, you are already helping yourself in the process, and of course helping others.
Yeah, perfect. Have you translated any of the books to English? Are they in English now?
Yes, 2 of them. I'm actually working now on. I'm looking at the if I should put them on Amazon or on my homepage. but I have them in 2 of my books. Mind Training and Hypnothinking are now translated in English. I just didn't yet make a decision. I will do it this week. Make a decision if I put it on Amazon or if I just put it on my homepage. I didn't decide yet.
Okay, yeah, no problem. That's great. So thank you so much for taking the time, and it was a pleasure talking to you as always. And
thank you, Oscar. It's a big honor.
Enjoy the cold shower tomorrow. I'm also into Wim Hof, as you know, and I'm trying. Yeah. But the problem in Dubai is that the cold shower is like 18 degrees, so there's not so much. So I can do the breathing exercise, but cold shower it's not so cold.
When you are allowed to go out, you can do the other version. He actually ran in the desert.
Oh yeah, true. Yeah, that's
so you can practice handling the heat instead.
Yeah, that's true.
The principle is the same.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, it's
so no excuses, Oscar.
Okay, that's a challenge. So, for me, it's harder with heat than cold, actually.
Of course it is. Of course it is. You are a Viking.
Yeah, exactly. Viking stuck in Dubai. Yeah, it's 40 degrees now, so yeah, maybe.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Thank you so much for taking the time, Igor.
Of course. Take care, buddy. Bye.